The arrival of the Eternal Fleet. The universe teetered on the edge of chaos. For centuries, the Eltaran Dominion, a race of hyper-intelligent, bioengineered beings, ruled the galaxy with an iron grip. Their fleets, known as the Eternal Armada, swept through star systems, conquering and assimilating every civilization in their path. To them, humans were an afterthought, a primitive species too scattered and fragile to pose a threat. But the Dominion had made a grave miscalculation. On a quiet day in the Sol system, humanity's newest deep space observatory picked up something strange. Dozens of massive ships exiting hyperspace near Jupiter. At first, it was thought to be a natural phenomenon or a sensor glitch. That illusion was shattered when the first volley struck Europa, obliterating its terraforming facilities in a single blinding explosion. Earth's United Council scrambled into action. Admiral Catherine Hayes, a veteran of Earth's first interstellar skirmishes, was summoned to lead the defense. The situation was dire. Humanity's fleet was advanced, but nowhere near the scale of the Eternal Armada. Still, Hayes stood before her officers, her voice unwavering. "They see us as weak because we've never faced them before," she said. "But they don't know us. We've built empires from ashes, turned disasters into triumphs. If they think we'll go quietly, they're in for a surprise." The enemy ships advanced relentlessly. The Eltarans unleashed swarms of drone fighters, each equipped with shields that seemed impenetrable. Earth's defenses faltered as orbital platforms were decimated. It seemed like the end was inevitable. But humanity wasn't fighting alone. Back on Earth, a group of scientists in New Singapore's Advanced Warfare Lab had been working on something revolutionary, an artificial intelligence system capable of coordinating millions of independent units in real time. Dubbed Sentinel, it was designed for situations exactly like this one. The team's leader, Dr. Elias Carter, knew they had no time to test Sentinel under controlled conditions. With destruction looming, he made the bold call to activate it immediately. "Are you sure about this?" his colleague asked. Carter stared at the live feed of Earth's orbital battles. Flames lit up the screen as station after station fell. "Do we have a choice?" With Sentinel online, the tide began to turn. Using its unmatched processing power, the AI analyzed the Eltarans' fleet formations and developed counter-strategies faster than any human mind could. It rerouted resources, optimized firing patterns, and even devised new tactics mid-battle. For the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving. They were fighting back. Admiral Hayes watched as Earth's warships, previously scattered and disorganized, moved with newfound precision. Missile volleys struck weak points in enemy shields, and coordinated maneuvers forced the Eltarans to spread their forces thinner than ever before. The Eternal Armada's commander, High Warden Thalvuk, observed the battle from his flagship. His face, covered in the ceremonial tattoos of his rank, twisted in frustration. No species had ever resisted the Dominion this effectively, let alone one so inferior. "This is impossible," he muttered. His second-in-command, a cold and calculating being named Syra, responded with uncharacteristic hesitation. "The humans are adapting, Warden. Their tactics are evolving faster than we anticipated." Thalvuk's fists tightened. "Then we will escalate. Bring in the obelisk." The obelisk was the crown jewel of the Eternal Armada, a colossal warship equipped with a weapon capable of destroying entire planets. Its arrival in the Sol system sent shockwaves through humanity's ranks. Admiral Hayes, now fully trusting in Sentinel, ordered her fleet to focus on delaying tactics. Every second they bought was a chance to analyze the obelisk's design and find a weakness. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Carter and his team pushed Sentinel to its limits. The AI worked tirelessly, processing terabytes of data from every sensor and drone humanity had deployed. Finally, it found something. The obelisk's main weapon required an enormous energy buildup, leaving its core vulnerable during the charge. But exploiting this weakness would come at a cost. Sentinel calculated a 78% probability that Earth's fleet would lose half its remaining ships in the attempt. When presented with the analysis, Admiral Hayes didn't hesitate. We fight for survival. If sacrifice is what it takes, then so be it. The battle for Earth reached its climax as the obelisk prepared to fire. Humanity's ships launched a desperate assault, drawing the attention of the Eternal Armada. Smaller vessels threw themselves into the fray, distracting the enemy long enough for a single strike team to approach the obelisk undetected. In the final moments, a coordinated barrage of missiles struck the obelisk's core, causing a chain reaction that consumed the massive ship in a fiery explosion. The shockwave rippled through space, disabling nearby Eltaran ships and forcing the Armada to retreat. Earth had won the battle, but the war was far from over. As Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of her battered flagship, she stared at the wreckage of the obelisk and spoke softly. "They'll be back. And next time, we'll be ready." Seeds of resistance. The wreckage of the obelisk floated silently in space, a haunting reminder of the battle that had ravaged the Sol system. Humanity had achieved the impossible, repelling the Eternal Armada, if only for now. But as Admiral Hayes predicted, the Eltarans wouldn't accept defeat so easily. This was merely the calm before the storm. Back on Earth, the United Council convened to discuss their next steps. The war had united humanity in a way no one thought possible. Old rivalries between nations were set aside, replaced by a singular purpose: survival. Yet, the cost of their victory weighed heavily on every soul. "We've bought ourselves time," Hayes addressed the council. "But time alone isn't enough. We need to prepare for their return. They'll come back stronger, and we can't rely solely on luck and ingenuity again." Her words struck a chord. Around the room, the council members nodded solemnly. The discovery of ancient allies. Meanwhile, on the distant Martian colony, something extraordinary was happening. During the battle, a massive plasma strike had inadvertently unearthed a cavern beneath Olympus Mons. Within its depths lay ruins that predated human civilization by millennia. Scientists rushed to investigate, their initial findings revealing inscriptions and technology that defied understanding. Dr. Anika Patel, one of humanity's foremost xenorchaeologists, led the excavation. As her team ventured deeper, they uncovered a crystalline structure pulsating with faint energy, an artifact left behind by an ancient species long extinct. The structure emitted a low-frequency hum that resonated with the human nervous system, sparking curiosity and unease. "This isn't just a relic," Patel muttered as she ran her hand along the smooth, glowing surface. "It's a message, or a warning." Through painstaking analysis, Patel's team deciphered fragments of the inscriptions. They spoke of a coalition of species that once banded together to resist the Eltarans eons ago. Though they ultimately failed, they left behind tools and knowledge for others who might rise to face the same enemy. Word of the discovery reached Admiral Hayes, who immediately dispatched military and scientific experts to the site. "If this artifact can help us level the playing field," she told her officers, "then it's our duty to uncover its secrets." The Eltaran counterstrike. While humanity scrambled to decode the artifact, the Eltarans were regrouping. On a hidden moon deep within their territory, High Warden Thalvok addressed the surviving commanders of the Eternal Armada. "This loss is an insult to our legacy," he growled, his voice echoing through the cavernous war chamber. "These humans have defied us. They've destroyed one of our greatest weapons. We cannot allow this to stand." Zyra, ever the tactician, stepped forward. "The humans are resourceful, but their strength is limited. We underestimated their ingenuity. This time, we will strike not with overwhelming force but with precision. Let us target their weaknesses, their colonies, their supply chains, their will to fight." Thalvok's eyes burned with fury. "And if that fails, then we unleash the Harvest Protocol," Kyra said coldly. The room fell silent. The Harvest Protocol was a last resort measure, a plan to bombard entire planets until they were reduced to lifeless husks. It was a strategy designed not to conquer, but to annihilate. Unity through adversity. Back on Earth, the artifact study yielded its first breakthrough. Dr. Patel's team discovered that it contained schematics for advanced energy manipulation technology, something far beyond human comprehension. These schematics, if properly understood, could revolutionize humanity's defenses. But there was a catch. Activating the artifact's full potential required a unique energy source, one that didn't exist naturally in the Sol system. Patel hypothesized that the energy could be synthesized, but it would require a level of cooperation between scientists, engineers, and military strategists that had never been attempted before. Admiral Hayes saw an opportunity. "We need every mind, every resource focused on this," she declared. "This isn't just about survival. It's about proving we can rise above anything they throw at us." Her words inspired a wave of collaboration unlike any in human history. Factories on Earth and Luna began producing experimental reactors based on the artifact's designs. Meanwhile, Sentinel, the AI that had been instrumental in their first victory, took on an even larger role, coordinating efforts across the entire solar system. The Eltaran saboteurs. As humanity prepared for the inevitable return of the Eltarans, an unexpected threat emerged. A sleeper cell of Eltaran operatives, hidden among human populations, began to sow chaos. They hacked communication systems, sabotaged supply lines, and spread disinformation to weaken morale. One such operative, known only as Calith, infiltrated the Martian colony, targeting the artifact's research team. Calith was a master of disguise, able to mimic human behavior almost flawlessly. For weeks, he worked in the shadows, gathering intelligence and planting seeds of distrust among the scientists. Dr. Patel, however, was not so easily deceived. She noticed subtle inconsistencies in Calith's behavior, hesitations when discussing human history, a slight accent in his speech. Confronting him alone in the artifact chamber, she outmaneuvered him in a battle of wits, ultimately trapping him in a containment field. With Calith captured, humanity gained invaluable insight into Eltaran strategies. Under interrogation, Calith revealed the existence of the Harvest Protocol and the Eltarans' plan to cripple humanity before launching their final assault. A new frontier. Armed with this knowledge, humanity redoubled its efforts. Dr. Patel's team succeeded in activating a portion of the artifact's power, generating a protective energy field capable of neutralizing Eltaran plasma weapons. It was a game-changer. Admiral Hayes, ever the pragmatist, knew that defense alone wouldn't win the war. "We need to take the fight to them," she declared. "This is no longer about survival. It's about ensuring they never threaten us or anyone else again." Using the artifact schematics, humanity began constructing a new class of starships. These vessels, dubbed the Vanguard Fleet, combined human ingenuity with ancient technology, making them faster, stronger, and more versatile than anything humanity had ever built. As the first Vanguard ship, the Eclipse, prepared for its maiden voyage, Admiral Hayes addressed her crew. "We've faced the unimaginable and survived. Now we go beyond survival. We fight for a future where no one has to endure what we've been through. This is our moment. Let's make it count." The Rising Storm. The Vanguard fleet had officially launched. On the eve of their first full-scale mission, Admiral Catherine Hayes stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, her flagship. The fleet was no longer just a defense force. It was a symbol of humanity's resolve, a beacon of defiance against the Eternal Armada. With the power of the artifact now coursing through their systems, humanity had gained an edge. But that edge had come at a price. The Eltarans would not forgive their loss so easily. A new battlefront. The Vanguard fleet was a marvel of engineering. It combined the ingenuity of Earth's best engineers with the ancient alien technology recovered from Mars. The new ships were equipped with adaptive energy shields, capable of withstanding the brutal plasma bombardment the Eltarans had unleashed on humanity. Each vessel was also outfitted with stealth systems derived from the artifact's crystalline energy, allowing them to slip past enemy detection with near invisibility. Admiral Hayes knew that this technological leap was a double-edged sword. The Eternal Armada would adapt. The Elturans had already begun to redeploy their forces in a far more calculated manner. High Warden Thalvok had learned from the defeat at Earth's doorstep. This time, humanity would face a more deliberate and merciless adversary. Humanity's first target was an Elturan fortress on a distant moon orbiting the gas giant Balthar. It was a key stronghold in the Eternal Armada's supply chain, one of the few remaining facilities capable of constructing the devastating warships that had decimated Earth's defenses. The goal was simple: strike fast, strike hard, and cripple their ability to wage war. The Eclipse led the charge, its sleek hull glinting under the cold light of Balthar's distant sun. As the fleet approached the moon, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Soldiers, engineers, and scientists alike had all become soldiers of war in the fight for humanity's survival. The bridge was filled with silence, save for the soft hum of the ship's systems. The element of surprise. Humanity's fleet had studied the Elturan fortress meticulously. Intelligence gathered from Caliph, the captured Elturan saboteur, revealed a critical vulnerability in their planetary shield network. The shields, though formidable, required periodic maintenance cycles, brief windows of time when the fortress was vulnerable to attack. Hayes had no intention of waiting for those cycles. She had a more daring plan. "We hit them now, while their systems are still active," she ordered. "Initiate stealth mode and prepare the long-range pulse cannons. We have one shot at this." The fleet engaged their cloaking systems, becoming invisible to the enemy sensors. The moon's surface was darkened by the absence of its usual orbital patrols, a small stroke of luck. As they descended into the moon's atmosphere, the fleet's stealth systems were pushed to their limits. For a moment, it felt like the universe itself held its breath. As the Eclipse drew closer to the fortress, the faintest pulse of energy rippled from the moon's surface, a signal indicating the shields were still up. Then, in an instant, the silence was shattered by the release of a massive energy wave from the Eclipse's pulse cannon. The beam of concentrated energy cut through the air like a blade, striking the Elturan defenses head-on. The fortress, unprepared for such an aggressive strike, trembled as the energy pulse tore through its outer walls. The shield systems faltered and flickered, revealing the fortress's heart. The Vanguard fleet wasted no time. Hundreds of fighter crafts, each piloted by humanity's finest, surged through the weakening defenses like a storm. The Elturan counteroffensive. High Warden Thalvok watched as the human fleet breached the fortress defenses. He clenched his fists in rage. The humans were proving far more formidable than he had ever anticipated. His command room, bathed in the dim glow of holoscreens, hummed with activity. "The harvest protocol will proceed," Thalvok growled, his eyes narrowing. "Let them think they've won." Zyra, standing by his side, observed the unfolding battle with a calculating gaze. "We cannot afford to underestimate them again. We need to launch a decisive strike before they regroup." "Deploy the Zilari fleet," Thalvok ordered. The Zilari fleet was a terrifying weapon, a squadron of ships known for their brutal firepower and impenetrable defenses. Unlike the sleek, advanced designs of the Eternal Armada, the Zilari ships were monstrous, heavily armored and capable of launching devastating kinetic strikes. They were designed for one purpose: annihilation. Within moments, the Zilari ships entered the battlefield. Cloaked in the darkness of space, their sheer size and power shook the Vanguard fleet to its core. These ships weren't just war machines, they were harbingers of destruction. The tide turns. As the Zilari fleet emerged from the shadows, humanity's fighters found themselves outmatched. The larger ships unleashed volleys of high-energy plasma bursts that tore through shields like paper, sending shockwaves through the ranks of the Vanguard. The Eclipse was struck by a series of rapid-fire pulses, sending the flagship into a violent spin. Admiral Hayes gritted her teeth, clutching the armrests of her chair as the ship lurched. The view outside the bridge windows shifted into chaos. Ships from both sides clashed, explosions lighting up the void of space. Activate countermeasures. Deploy drones to distract their fire, Hayes barked. She wasn't about to let the humans lose this advantage so quickly. The Eclipse's AI, Sentinel, took over the ship's combat systems, coordinating attacks, deploying decoys, and rerouting power to the failing shields. Despite the overwhelming firepower of the Zilari fleet, the Eclipse held its ground, firing back with devastating precision. The pulse cannons tore into the Zilari ships, forcing them to retreat momentarily. However, the Zilari fleet wasn't finished. They regrouped and returned with even more force, launching direct strikes at the Vanguard's energy core. The Eclipse's hull cracked under the pressure, and for a moment, it seemed as though humanity's most powerful ship would fall. But Admiral Hayes refused to give in. The final gamble. As the battle raged on, Dr. Annika Potil on Earth reviewed the data sent from the front lines. Her team had been working tirelessly on further activating the alien artifact's capabilities, hoping to provide the fleet with a breakthrough. In a moment of inspiration, Patil had an idea. If the energy emitted by the artifact could be harnessed in a more offensive manner, it could change the tide of the battle. With only minutes to spare, Patil contacted Hayes. "Admiral, we've developed a new configuration for the artifact's energy. It's experimental, but if you deploy it now, it could neutralize their fleet's weapons." Hayes hesitated for only a moment. This was a risky maneuver, one that could backfire and leave the fleet vulnerable. But with their backs against the wall, she had no other choice. "Deploy it. Now," she ordered. With that, the Eclipse fired a concentrated burst of the artifact's energy directly at the Zilari fleet. The shockwave rippled through space, destabilizing their weapons and rendering them powerless. The Zilari ships, now vulnerable, were picked off one by the coordinated strike force. Victory was within humanity's grasp. The heart of the storm. The Eclipse hovered over the shattered remains of the Zilari fleet, the once mighty warships now drifting like abandoned husks in the vacuum of space. The human fleet had struck a decisive blow, but the victory felt hollow. The battle had been brutal, the losses heavy, and despite their triumph, the war was far from over. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge, staring at the wreckage through the panoramic windows. Her expression was unreadable, a mixture of relief and dread hanging in the air. A new kind of war. Humanity's victory over the Zilari fleet had made one thing clear. They were no longer fighting the conventional war. The Eternal Armada had underestimated human resourcefulness and adaptability, but they had learned from their mistakes. The Elterans, unlike any other enemy humanity had faced, were relentless, and their tactics evolved rapidly. On Earth, the United Council met in secret, discussing what was to come. The tide of the war had shifted, but the Elterans were not known for backing down. They had retreated, licked their wounds, and regrouped. But this time, they would not simply try to crush humanity's forces. They would try to wipe out humanity itself. "Admiral, we've analyzed the battlefield data," General Castillo, the leader of Earth's united military forces, said as he stood before the council. "The Zilari fleet was only a fraction of what they're capable of. They've been holding back, using us as a testing ground for more devastating tactics." The holographic projection of the battlefield flickered as it displayed a new model of the Eternal Armada's next moves. The Elterans had begun to construct massive war machines, behemoth ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. These ships, designed for planetary annihilation, were equipped with weapons capable of reducing entire cities to ash in moments. It was clear that the next phase of the war would not be fought in space alone. The Elterans were preparing for a full-scale invasion. "We cannot let them get to Earth," Hayes said, her voice steady, but with an edge of urgency. "We need to hit them before they can build these behemoths. We need to attack their supply lines and dismantle their war machine piece by piece. And we need to do it now." The council agreed, and a plan was formed. Humanity would take the war directly to the Elteran homeworld, their most fortified and heavily defended planet. If they could cripple the heart of the Eternal Armada, they could force the Elterans to negotiate, or, better yet, bring an end to the war altogether. The assault on the Eltaran homeworld. The Eclipse and the rest of the Vanguard fleet began their journey toward the Eltaran homeworld. The fleet was now an elite task force, having undergone months of intensive training and preparation. In addition to their upgraded ships, humanity's scientists had made critical breakthroughs in propulsion technology, enabling them to travel faster and with greater stealth than ever before. The human fleet now operated like a single organism, each ship moving in perfect harmony with the others. On the eve of the assault, Admiral Hayes called her officers to the bridge for a final briefing. "This mission is the most dangerous we've ever faced. The Eltarans know we're coming, and they'll be prepared. We'll face defenses unlike anything we've encountered before." Her gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of her officers one by one. "But we've come this far because we've never backed down. We've faced impossible odds and lived to tell the tale. Now we take the fight to them. We end this." The crew responded with a resounding chorus of agreement, the unspoken bond between them stronger than ever. Each officer, each soldier knew the stakes. It was not just their survival on the line. It was the survival of humanity itself. As the fleet neared the Eltaran system, the sheer scale of the enemy's defenses became apparent. Massive orbiting fortresses surrounded the homeworld, their weaponry capable of turning even the most advanced human ships into scrap metal. However, the fleet had come prepared. Dr. Patel's team had made another breakthrough with the alien artifact, this time developing a cloaking device capable of bypassing the Eltaran's sensor networks. The fleet would approach undetected, striking when the enemy least expected it. "Get ready," Hayes said, her eyes focused on the looming planet ahead. "This is it. The infiltration." The first stage of the operation was to infiltrate the Eltaran homeworld's outer defenses. The human fleet's cloaking systems went online, and for a brief moment, the Vanguard fleet seemed to vanish from the universe. Despite the sophisticated enemy radar and sensor systems, the cloak was nearly perfect, an unseen shadow moving toward the heart of the Eltaran Empire. The infiltration force included a small contingent of stealth ships and special operations teams. Their mission was simple: disable the primary orbital defenses surrounding the planet while the main fleet positioned itself for the final strike. The Eltaran defenses, once thought impenetrable, were no match for the humanity's new tactics. Using precision strikes and advanced hacking systems, the Special Ops teams disabled key satellite arrays, rendering the Eltaran defense network temporarily blind. However, just as humanity began to gain the upper hand, the Eltarans struck back. "We're not alone out here," Commander Alexei said, his voice tight as alarms blared across the bridge. "There's a fleet of Eltaran interceptors moving into position." Admiral Hayes didn't flinch. "Evasive maneuvers. Prepare for battle. The battle for the homeworld." The moment the cloaking systems failed, the full fury of the Eltaran Armada descended upon the human fleet. The Vanguard fleet, still positioned at the outskirts of the homeworld's defenses, now found itself facing an onslaught. Plasma cannons erupted from the Eltaran warships, their beams cutting through the darkness of space. The battle was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The Eltarans, though caught off guard, quickly adapted, deploying their advanced warships and fighters in an attempt to encircle the human forces. But the Vanguard fleet was relentless, striking with surgical precision. Each ship in the fleet was a weapon, each captain and crew member a cog in the machine that was humanity's last hope. Despite their best efforts, the human fleet held its ground. The Eclipse, battered but still operational, unleashed a volley of energy beams that tore through the Eltaran lines, creating an opening for the stealth ships to slip through and take out the primary planetary defense arrays. "Commander, we've disabled the shields," reported Lieutenant Tanaka, her voice full of excitement. "The planet is exposed. The time had come." Admiral Hayes ordered the final strike, the unthinkable choice. As the human fleet pressed forward, ready to deliver the final blow, A message came through from Dr. Patel. "Admiral, we've been studying the artifact," Patel said urgently. "There's something you need to know. The artifact's power source. It's connected to the Eltaran homeworld's core. If we use it to disable their defenses, it could destabilize the entire planet." Hayes hesitated. Destroying the Eltaran homeworld would end the war, but it would also be an act of unimaginable destruction. The Eltarans, for all their ruthlessness, had been a species just like humanity once, fighting for survival. But then, her thoughts turned to the countless lives lost on Earth, on Mars, and across the colonies. Could she risk allowing the Eltarans to rebuild, to strike again? Could humanity afford mercy in this war? The decision weighed heavily on her shoulders, but there was no going back now. "Proceed with the plan," she ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. The consequences of victory. The final assault on the Eltaran homeworld was a turning point in the war, but victory, as it so often does, came at a staggering cost. The artifact's power surged as humanity's fleet positioned itself for the final strike, and the Eltaran homeworld's core began to tremble. The decision to use the artifact to disable the planet's defenses had triggered something far more catastrophic than even Dr. Patel had anticipated. The planet's core, already teetering on the edge from years of exploitation by the Eternal Armada, now began to destabilize. The heart of the Eltaran Empire shudders. Admiral Hayes stood in stunned silence as the holographic display on the bridge flickered. The Eltaran homeworld, once a thriving center of their empire, was now a ticking time bomb. The immense power of the artifact had not only neutralized the planetary defenses, but had also begun a chain reaction that could cause the planet to collapse in on itself. "Admiral, the core is reacting," Lieutenant Tanaka reported, her voice tense. "The energy levels are off the charts. If we don't evacuate the area immediately, we'll be caught in the blast radius." A wave of dread washed over the bridge as Hayes processed the magnitude of the situation. The plan had been simple: disable the defenses, strike at the heart of the Eltaran war machine. But they had underestimated the artifact's true power. What had begun as a tactical strike to cripple the Eltaran Empire now threatened to end it entirely. The sheer destructive force of the artifact had not only disrupted the Eltaran technology, it had tapped into the planet's core, destabilizing its entire energy system. If they didn't act fast, the planet would implode, taking the entire homeworld with it. The lives of billions of Eltarans were now at the mercy of a decision they had made, and the irony was not lost on Hayes. The very weapon they had used to secure humanity's survival had set in motion a disaster that could end an entire species. A race against time. "We need to pull back," Hayes said, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "All ships, retreat. Full speed ahead. Get us out of here before we're caught in the blast radius." The Eclipse and the other ships of the Vanguard fleet immediately began to reverse course, their engines roaring to life as they cut through the stars. But as the ships retreated, Hayes' eyes were fixed on the hologram of the Eltaran homeworld. The planet was beginning to crack, massive fissures spreading across its surface like the veins of a dying creature. Within minutes, the entire planet would be gone. "I sent the coordinates for a safe exit," Lieutenant Tanaka said. "But we've got a problem. The Eltaran forces, there are more of them than we anticipated. They've deployed reinforcements from their other colonies. We can't outrun them." The screens around the bridge flickered with incoming enemy ships. Eltaran warships, their designs more aggressive and deadly than anything humanity had encountered before. The Vanguard fleet, already battered from the earlier battles, was in no shape to fight a new wave of enemies. Hayes knew that unless they acted quickly, the retreat would become a bloodbath. "We won't run," Hayes said, her resolve hardening. "We fight to survive. Prepare all weapons. Prepare for the worst. The price of survival." As the enemy fleet closed in, a sense of finality hung in the air. The choice to destroy the Eltaran homeworld had sealed their fate, but humanity's battle for survival was not over yet. The Alterans might be on the verge of annihilation, but their pride would not allow them to go down quietly. The humans had made a grave mistake by unleashing the artifact's full power without fully understanding its consequences. Now, they would pay the price. The Eclipse fired its plasma cannons, sending shockwaves of light through the void. Each blast was a desperate act of defiance, a way of saying that humanity would not be wiped out in the same way they had watched so many others perish. The Vanguard fleet, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, fought with the ferocity of a species that had nothing left to lose. On the battlefield, Commander Alexei led the charge, piloting a fighter craft through the chaos. His movements were precise, instinctive, as he weaved in and out of the crossfire, taking down enemy fighters one by one. The human fighters were coordinated, working in unison, but even they knew the odds were against them. "We've got to make it out of here," Alexei muttered, firing at an approaching Eltaran fighter. "The fleet's our only hope." Behind him, Lieutenant Tanaka's voice crackled over the comms. "We're holding steady, Commander, but the Eltarans are relentless. They're not letting up." Despite the desperate situation, Hayes knew that humanity's ingenuity would give them an edge. The humans had always found ways to survive, even when the odds were insurmountable. But survival now meant outsmarting an enemy that had no intention of letting them escape. The final stand. The final moments of the battle were chaos. The Eltarans, pushing forward with everything they had left, unleashed their full arsenal. The Vanguard fleet's shields were weakening under the onslaught, the ship's hulls scarred and burning from the plasma blasts. Yet every ship in the fleet fought with unwavering determination. The Eclipse, despite its damaged state, continued to lead the charge, sending wave after wave of destructive energy into the approaching enemy fleet. "This is it," Admiral Hayes said, her voice steady even as the ship's alarms blared in the background. "We give everything we've got. We fight for humanity's future." The crew, bound by their shared determination, fought as one. The battlefield was alive with the sounds of explosions and the hum of energy shields struggling to stay intact. In the distance, the Eltaran homeworld was on the verge of disintegration. Massive shockwaves spread outward from the planet, distorting space itself. The final moments of the homeworld were both beautiful and terrifying. An entire world, once the center of an empire, now crumbling into oblivion. And as the fleet continued to fight, as the last of the Eltaran forces were eliminated, humanity had one final choice to make. Would they be able to return home, or would this battle mark the beginning of a new era? One where their survival would no longer be guaranteed, and the Eltaran's wrath would be the least of their worries. A new dawn. The battle had ended, but the cost was far from over. As the Vanguard fleet made its way home, Hayes stood on the bridge, gazing out at the remnants of the Eltaran system. It was a bittersweet victory, one that had been won at the edge of humanity's collective willpower. "We've done it," Lieutenant Tanaka said quietly, breaking the silence. But Hayes knew that the true cost of their victory wouldn't be understood for years to come. They had destroyed an entire world, but at what cost? The Eltarans were gone, but so much had been lost in the process. Humanity had won, but now, the real battle was about to begin. What came next? As the Eclipse and the Vanguard fleet made their way back to Earth, the question loomed. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity had earned its place in the stars. They had proven that no matter how overwhelming the odds, they would fight, they would survive, and they would rise from the ashes of their past to forge a new destiny.